What were the highlights and lowlights of gaming in 2022?
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support.
Hi there. Welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the award-winning tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading tech journalists to dive into the big tech stories of the week, or in this case, the year. I'm Alex Kidman, and I'm not joined this week by Adam Turner. He's taking it easy as 2022 starts to wind to a close, which is to say that he got the leave forms into the Vertical Hold HR office before I could. Some people have all the luck. But 2022 is nearly in the history books, which means it's a traditional time for us here at Vertical Hold to look back on the year in technology and games. And joining me to discuss the gaming aspect, I've got two of the local games journalism scene's brightest stars. From Kotaku, Australia, it's David Smith and Ruby Innes.
Hello, mate.
I'll let people work out who is who there.
I'm Ruby.
I'm
Clearly.
David.
Clearly, this is not going to get confusing at all. So, for an episode about gaming, I thought it would be appropriate to start with a game. Now, I should point out that David and Ruby have not been preempted on this. They don't know what's coming, and this could catastrophically fall over. But
Oh, no.
gaming is all about hype and all about big hyped games of the year. So I've assembled a list of 10 of the bigger or more hyped or more significant games. It's not going to cover everything. And what I'd like the two of you to do is let me know if you think it lived up to the hype, exceeded the hype, or failed to live up to the hype. Was it as good, better, or worse than expected based on how much it was hyped?
Right.
Now, if you haven't played it, and I should be fair to both of my guests and to myself, nobody has the time to play everything. If you don't have an opinion on each of these games in turn, that's 100% fine. But I just want to see how this goes. So we'll start off with a very big heavy hitter and very relevant right now. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Or I would say met the hype. For the audience that were waiting for it, were ready for it, they got what they wanted.
Only met, didn't exceed?
I don't think it exceeded. I think it met. I think it did exactly what it needed to.
I think the only place it exceeded was in its character development, because it seems like the characters in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 have really connected with a wider audience than previously. Like, Ghost and, is it Simon? Is that
I'm not
it?
sure.
Ghost and Soap.
Hmm.
Soap.
Those two
Okay.
as a duo, Simon. Ghost and Soap, I feel like have become, big fan favorites. They were fan favorites back in the day, but now
With a different crowd.
their story has been expanded on a bit and followed. People seem to enjoy them even more so than before, and the voice acting performances are fantastic. So I feel like I agree with David that it met expectations. In terms of like character development, though, I think it exceeded, because it's not usually something that the everyday gamer would expect from Call of Duty. So
What Ruby's dancing around there when she says character development is TikTok thirst.
Well,
he's so much more than that.
well, speaking of potentially both TikTok thirst and certainly character development, game number 2 in my list of mystery, God of War Ragnarok.
I think it exceeded.
I would agree.
Truly do. I had never played God of War, like the 2018 one, and I've never played a God of War game before that, so I came into God of War Ragnarok completely blind, knowing that the 2018 one had a reputation for being absolutely fantastic. So in my mind, I was like, oh, this is the next step of game of the year. So like, expectations were high purely because it was so, not only was it hyped, but the game before it was hyped. So going into it, it exceeded all of my expectations, because the only expectations I had were what everybody else had given me. and I went into it and came out of it feeling just overwhelmed with emotion, amazed by all the work that Santa Monica Studio had done, impressed with its accessibility features, and just happy with all of it, really. Also, God of War Ragnarok's Thor is the best Thor rendition I have ever seen in any media ever. He's a big, hunky mess. I am obsessed with him.
Game number 3 on my list of mystery, Cult of the Lamb.
Oh no.
I'm just going to shut up and let Ruby go.
I'm so sorry, David. These are all games for me.
Oh, take it. Take the wheel. Seriously.
Cult of the Lamb exceeded. I think it exceeded purely because like the thing is the hype was real. The hype was real for Cult of the Lamb, you know? So I think expectations were high, but in my eyes, I think it exceeded purely because it was so much more on top of what it was already being expected as a video game. They worked with so many different ideas, so many different game mechanics to make what Cult of the Lamb is. And I absolutely loved it. And I think what I really respect about Cult of the Lamb as well is that it came out and it did have bugs. I thankfully only ran into one bug, which was fixed very quickly, but it did have bugs on release. And you can take the approach of a certain Nintendo seal of approval game where they say nothing until it gets really bad and then they apologize later, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Or you can be super open and super transparent with your development process and with your fixing of the game. And that's exactly what Cult of the Lamb did. They had a button in the game that you could press to report bugs the second you see them. And they were just really, really open and communicative with the community. And I think that's a huge part of gaming nowadays, and making a game succeed is building a community around it. I think they did that. I think they exceeded expectations with the community that they built, and the game itself. Woof! Oh my god, what a work of art in every single aspect. The soundtrack, the visuals, the gameplay, the many different forms of gameplay. Exceeded expectations. I love it.
I'm getting that feeling. Yeah, yeah.
This podcast is going to be an hour long.
I could go on. You don't want me to.
Okay, so the next one on the list is a little bit of a cheat, but it was so significant in gaming in 2022 that I'm going to include it. Wordle.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. Ooh, came out of nowhere. I was playing this at Christmas last year. Who is playing it now is my question. How many people are still doing it every single day? At the time, huge. I think everybody was doing it. And then it seemed like every other day we were writing stories on clones and spin-offs, things people were trying with it. There was like a video game version that Ruby found at one point. There was Hurdle with music. Like that tapped into something. I don't know what happened there, but like that the person who created that game struck a really rich vein of something people really needed at that moment. Yeah, I would say I cannot have expectations because we didn't see it coming. No one knew it was happening until it was all over Twitter.
But then it was this huge hyped thing.
That's true. That's true. If by that metric, I would say it probably exceeded expectations because I had none to begin with. So I went in blind. And then I was playing it every day and I played it every day for weeks.
This is going to be a really weird thing to say, but bear with me, stay with me on this. I feel like Animal Crossing came out at a time. Me saying something weird? Shocking. Never. I think Animal Crossing came out at the time during the pandemic where people just wanted connection, and it was perfect for that.
Yeah.
And it hit that mark of exactly what people needed at the time, which was connection and a place to escape, right? I feel like Wordle came out at a time where people were burnt out. Their brains didn't work anymore because everybody was working at home, but working to extremes to make up for the fact that the world was kind of going down the toilet a bit. So I think a lot of people's brains were fried, and Wordle came in at this perfect time where uh, there was still that togetherness, but everybody was just jolting their brains again in order to try and like seize what little they had left of that you know desire to know things. You know what I mean? It's a weird connection, but that's kind of the way that I see Wordle. It came in at the perfect time where people just they
Mm.
wanted to show everybody how smart they were because they were feeling really dumb after the pandemic because it just rattled our brains.
So true.
So, jumping to something that should actually appeal to the other person in the room with Ruby that the listeners will not be able to see, Stray.
Oh man, yeah, you took that one away from Ruby because she'd have gone for that one too. Um, Man, what a great little game. I would say I think it exceeded expectations. I think a lot of people maybe thought it was going to be quite a simple game, and it is relatively simple as sort of adventure platformers go. But the wrinkle of playing a cat, the way the game plays with scale, you're just this little cat in a very big and complex world, much bigger and more complex than you're equipped to deal with at any rate. It's a short and sweet game. It has such a clear mission statement. It knows exactly what it wants to do, and it leads you by the nose through it perfectly. Beautiful, beautiful game. Exceeded expectations. We were writing about it for weeks.
Okay, jumping from one animal to another, Sonic Frontiers.
Whoa, we got a division in progress. I would. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say it met expectations because the expectations around this one were pretty tepid, and I don't know that it got even close to exceeding them. That game came out. I played it for about 2 or 3 hours the first weekend I had it, and I was sort of like, yeah, this is more or less what I expected. I think Ruby got a lot more out of it than I did, however.
Yeah. How do you put expectations on a Sonic game? That's
They
I
hyped
don't.
this one
Oh no,
pretty hard. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say that
they
that's
this one
true.
did.
had this is the big reimagining. I mean, I remember we had this discussion at PAX, in fact,
Yeah, we
Mm,
that
did.
this was the big reimagining of Sonic. This was the big new game that was going to break the Sonic cycle.
Mm.
And David, I'm getting
yeah.
the impression from you that you don't think it did.
No, no. I mean, it certainly plays with the form. It is trying new things, and I think that's to be applauded. Like you can tell that Sonic Team had like really really big ideas and concepts that they wanted to try and get across with this game. They couldn't do a full open world, and I think that may have been the edict come down from upstairs at some point. Be like, we want a big open world Sonic. Let's do that. Um, they couldn't quite get there. So they came up with this thing called Open Zone, which is similar, bigger, larger
Mm.
3D environments than you usually get to play around with in the Sonic space, but also you get these digital levels which are much more like the 3D Sonic experience where you're moving very quickly through an arcadey kind of level where you're dodging obstacles and grinding along rails and running around loops and things like that.
And then
It's
falling
a
through bugs and crashing off the
and
world.
literally running into a wall or my rings exploding and Sonic getting thrown off the side of the level. Like all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it is this strange shift in energy between the two. One point that Ruby made that I thought was really, really valuable to helping me understand the game a bit more was that when you're not in those fast moving digital levels, when you're just in the open zone areas, it is a much slower, lonelier experience. It's like the Death Stranding of Sonic games. It's very
God, it's
isolating.
lonely.
It's a
It's
very
so lonely.
it's a very isolating experience, which is strange for a Sonic game because he's usually surrounded by his friends, right?
Hmm.
So the first thing they've done is they've taken all his mates away from him, and make you really focus in on him, which I do think is interesting. It's just it doesn't take that extra step that I feel like it needs to get there, and maybe that was moving to a full open world, but yeah, it's not quite there for me. Ruby, you like what was your take there?
I think it met the expectations because the expectations were incredibly mixed. Sonic fans wanted an open world. They got part of it. Sonic fans wanted a new Sonic game. They got that. But generally, people saw what was on offer with Sonic Frontiers before it came out, and they were like, "Not sure." And that's kind of exactly where it's at. I feel not at a single point while playing Sonic Frontiers did I have any clue what was going on.
Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
I don't know. Genuinely. I think the gameplay in terms of like, going fast and beating big bosses. I thought it was really fun. I think the gameplay was really fun. I think there was a little jank and the story was incredibly confusing. It is weird hearing Sonic not sound like a kid. Um and yeah, it
He
felt
sounds like a
really
gruff
lonely.
sailor who's seen too much of this world, or
Yeah, it felt like the voice of Sonic, but trying to put on the voice of Knuckles, which it was really weird to me. And
Which is
maybe
funny
I'd
because
gotten
it
used
was
to,
still Roger Craig Smith, right? Like it was still the same voice actor.
I think
I'm pretty
I
sure.
thought it felt, it's a weird game. It is a weird game with fun mechanics at times. But I don't think it quite knows what it's trying to be.
Mm,
Uh, because it is a Sonic game, but it's also doesn't fully feel like one.
yeah.
But then again, Sonic has taken so many twists and turns while still having like the gotta go fast thing that it's getting to a point where I'm like, what is a Sonic game? I don't know. My only thing that I refer back to is Sonic Adventure 2, and I feel like that was an anomaly of a Sonic game because it was weird, but it also knew what it was, and it had the Chower Garden, which I think should be brought back.
Agreed.
okay, I'm going to bundle two sequels in together. So Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Horizon Forbidden West.
Oh my gosh. Ruby, did you play either of these?
I think you can speak to both of them. I haven't
Okay,
played
cool.
Mario Rabbids 2 yet.
All right.
I absolutely loved the first one, and I feel like I'm going to be obsessed with the
Oh
second
my
one.
god.
David, go
It's so
off.
I'm gonna do Horizon first. Um Horizon, because I've been thinking about it. I played a little bit more of it the other night because I wanted to refresh my memory before I started putting my game of the year list together. Man, that is like we were just talking about how like Sonic Frontiers didn't quite nail the open world. This nails the open world. There is so much to see and do in Horizon Forbidden West. Hype, hype. I think it met it. It was another one of these games that had a lot of hype behind it, but knew exactly what it had to do and what it needed to be to get there. Um, and I think it nailed that. It is in every sense of the word a PlayStation exclusive. Like it is in that mold. God of War is in a similar vein where it's really really rich storytelling and character development. A big open environment that you can get lost in. Um, Lots of things to discover, lots of things to find and uncover throughout the course of the story, and a long post game, which, if the rumors going around at the moment are to be believed, we might be about to get an expansion announcement in the very, very near future. Um, I am more than ready to go back. I think it met the expectations on it quite neatly. Mario Rabbids massively exceeded expectations. At least for
They
me.
got rid of all the rabbits, so I won't hate it.
The rabbits are still there.
Ah, damn it.
However, you are doing a lot more. You're given a lot more freedom on the battlefield. I will say that much. So your options for beating the crap out of the rabbits are greatly expanded. So
I'm on board with this.
if that sounds appealing, you can shoot a rabbit with a gun. That's a good pitch.
That's a great pitch.
It's a hell of a pitch.
I feel
Um,
like Mario Rabbids as a series in general has been the best thing to happen to the Rabbids ever.
totally,
Yeah, but
100%.
you're starting from such a low bar there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's like a
Yeah,
redemption arc
it
when,
truly.
they had never done anything redeemable, only irredeemable by existing.
Yeah,
But they got their redemption with Mario Rabbids. Because, like, the Mario versions of the Rabbids, the Rabbids versions of the Mario characters are really fun. They're really silly.
Yeah, they're really
I,
silly.
I'm going to say I disagree with that, but this is fine. We can still be friends. We can still be friends. And finally, in my list of 10, a game that I feel that people will throw things at me if I don't mention it, even though I don't personally get on with it all that well. But it had so much hype. Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It exceeded expectations, didn't it? Like the
Mm,
expectations were stratospheric to
mm,
begin with, and somehow every single person I knew, even Ruby, was playing this game at one point or another.
And I'm
Um,
terrible at video games.
and yeah, Ruby's not that. Ruby's bad at video games, y'all.
I'm no good.
Not
I'm
good.
probably worse at Elden Ring than you are, Ruby.
Debatable. Real
It's
debatable.
oh my god, we got 3 people in a room who are just like really bad at Elden Ring
Sorry.
and bad at From games. It this cut through in a way I have not seen since like Skyrim. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like where everybody was playing it. Like we work in an office, well, 2 offices. I'm in the Melbourne office, and Ruby is in the Sydney office at the at
Mm.
Pedestrian, which is our parent company, and that is a company full of extremely cool, normal people who don't play a lot of video games. A great many of them. There were an awful lot of people, even within our office, who were playing Elden Ring, like going home after work every night and playing that game. Massive cut through everywhere you looked. Um, I don't know how From makes a bigger game than this. This is kind of, I mean, I feel like it gets said about From games every time, but this really does feel like their masterpiece. They took their own formula, expanded it in really smart ways, um, and in accessible ways that allowed people to come into what is still a very challenging game and make headway in it, or even crack the code and figure it out. I'm very much with you, Alex. I am not a huge From guy. I'm probably going to get like rotten fruit and vegetables thrown at me for my own game of the year list because I don't know if I'll include it. I
Amen.
respect it for what it is. I respect it for what it's
mm.
done immensely. I understand the importance of the thing, but it is also not for me. Um, Having said that, exceeded expectations at every level.
Big agree. Big agree. I tried to play it. I tried. I desperately tried, but it just wasn't made with me in mind, and that's okay because plenty of games aren't. And I but big agree with David. I can see the appeal, and it's a mass appeal, and it is beautifully made, and
Mm.
so much work was put into it, and they did a fantastic job. It exceeded expectations. Yeah.
Totally.
That's actually a really, really good point that an individual game does not have to be for everyone and probably shouldn't be
Mm.
in most cases. And what I thought was going to be a 5 minute intro game has run for 25 minutes now, which is kind
That
of
is the
exceptional.
podcast now.
It's
It
always the
worked
way.
better than I expected, which is great. Which is great. We should shift to news though. And I was looking through what had kind of happened in gaming this year, and probably the big prevalent trend was everyone buying everyone else. I was looking through
Hmm.
the list. Microsoft, Sony, Netflix, Tencent, Embracer, Fandom. Hell, even Atari bought other gaming properties. I don't know where they got the money from, but they did. Is all this consolidation, though, that we're seeing a good thing necessarily?
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
I am not. I am not.
No.
I am wary. I'm very very wary. I mean, we are obviously part of Kotaku. Kotaku takes a very skeptical view of this. Um, it is in some senses good, but in many more, uh, not that great. We're seeing a lot of this. You can compare it, I think, to the film industry, right, where Disney is just gobbling up studio after studio, IP after IP, and turning it into a wall of homogenized content, right? Everything's got a similar look and feel and vibe, and they have a factory turning these things out. Um, and it is getting to a point now where we are starting to see regulation having to step in. This story is playing out even today as we're
Hmm.
recording this. The next chapter in that story came through with Microsoft, who have been under siege by regulators around the world for their Activision Blizzard acquisition or acquisition Blizzard attempt. Um,
Nice.
thank you. Uh, in trying to get this over the line, regulators around the world have stepped in and basically been like, this is threateningly close to a monopoly. We need to look at this. We need to make sure that that everything is above board here, because what you're attempting to absorb is in Australian dollars, and I know this because I've been writing it every other day for many, many months, 103 billion Australian dollars. That is 69 American dollars. 69 American dollars.
Wow, the
69
exchange rate got a
It's
lot
like-
worse today.
Nice.
It's way worse. It's way
Nice.
worse. 69 billion
Nice.
American dollars it is the biggest acquisition in the history of video games. I would believe it if it actually was $69. Nice. It is so massive that, yeah, the law has had to get involved, and that has made PlayStation very agitated because they don't want to lose things like Call of Duty. They've been pressuring Microsoft, and now today Microsoft has come out basically with like pointing a gun at PlayStation and being like, well, we're going to let Nintendo have it as well. So now PlayStation has the ball back in their court. What are you going to do? Because now it looks like Microsoft is willing to play ball and be friendly with the rest of the industry. Where does that leave you? Your argument was that it was going to make things difficult for everyone else, but now Microsoft is putting themselves in a position where they think, well, we could make it easier, couldn't we? This is what they want. It's so... I don't like it. I think it was better when we had a lot of different publishers. I think it was better when we had more competition. Microsoft in the last couple of years has absorbed Bethesda as well, a bunch of smaller studios like Double Fine, like in this effort to buff up Game Pass, the subscription service. And now we're at this point where they're about to absorb one of the biggest publishers in the world, what you would consider maybe one of the big three, Ubisoft, EA, and Activision Blizzard. Now they got one of them. And we know the other two are open to acquisition as well. Like, Yves Guillemot is going to be like, if you got, like, listen, I fought like a takeover for a long time, but if you got that cash to spend, I'll take it. Like, yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I don't know that it is good in the long term for the games industry to be consolidating like this.
Yeah, big time. And
Sorry,
also,
that wasn't
like,
much of a funny answer, but like,
No. It's
no,
a
but
totally
it's
accurate.
not funny.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not funny. It's scary. And then you've got, I don't know, like, Microsoft's one thing, but then you've got other companies that pretty much just seem to be buying stuff for the sake of owning stuff. Like, you've got Tencent, you've got the Embracer Group, and you have little to no idea what they plan to do with any of these studios and these IPs. Like,
yeah.
Embracer bought Square Enix's Western studios,
They're cast-offs,
and then
yeah.
not long after doing that, just closed one of them down. Like, it's scary because it's like what's going to happen to these like, all of these studios are not only getting consolidated into companies, but their staff are usually getting consolidated into, you know, those other studios, and then there's the potential of maybe long-awaited games that had been being worked on getting left in the dust because, oh, you're part of this big studio now. Time to work on something that's going to make us a bit more money.
That's the thing, right? Like, all of this
Yeah.
is it's IP, right? What they want is IP. They don't want the people. Like, they'll take them, but if they're not any use to them, they'll just get rid of them. Like, Microsoft is not buying Activision Blizzard because they care about the people that work there, like the people that are still there after the troubles that company has just gone through. Like, there are a lot of really good, hardworking people who are still there slaving away on games like Overwatch 2. Microsoft doesn't want necessarily those people. There is an awful lot of talent there, and that would be beneficial, certainly. But they want the IP. They want Diablo. They want StarCraft. They want Call of Duty. They want World of Warcraft. Like, that's the buy-in here. Like, if that goes away, if it's not going to meet some internal KPI, people are going to lose their jobs. And that's terrifying. They will spool up and spool down as much as they need to, and it will become this yo-yo of personnel coming in and out of these giant... Ugh, I hate it. No, thank you.
I've got to say, I feel like I've been doing this too long because this also feels like history repeating itself in terms of the local games development scene, where we saw so many studios bought out by big corporations and then summarily shut down 6 months later. It just happens again and again and again. And maybe that's just because I have been doing this for too long. So let's jump to a slightly different topic for the year. Which game this year preferably one of this year, but I suppose it doesn't have to be, was your biggest time sink? Just the one you spent the most time playing.
Mm,
That
most
came out
time?
this year.
Preferably. But if there was a game that dominated your playtime this year that didn't come out this year, then that's still valid, I think. It'd certainly be true for me.
David,
Uh,
do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, the one that always gobbles up my time did not come out this year. That's Sea of Thieves. That is a game that takes a long time to play. I love that game so much, but every session is like, the Rick and Morty quote of like short adventure, 20 minutes in and out. That is Sea of Thieves in a nutshell. You jump in and it's
8 hours
4
later.
hours
Yeah.
later, and you're
Yeah.
just like, what happened? What did we do in that time? We had a great time, but I don't remember what happened. Um, Games this year that sucked up my time. I God of War Ragnarok honestly hoovered up a lot of my time. I 100%ed that. I don't chase the platinum trophy on many games, but that one had me going to the end. Yeah, I put in a good amount of time when I probably should have been playing other things for work, chasing down that final trophy. Yeah, definitely. I would say God of War.
Okay, and Ruby, you've had some thinking time now.
Oh man.
She wasn't thinking.
No thoughts. Head empty. A game that didn't come out this year, that I'm actually not sure when it came out, but I have spent probably the majority of my time in, is a mobile game called Monogram Galaxy,
Ooh.
that I am simply obsessed with. It takes up all of my spare time because I'll kind of just sit on my phone playing it. But in terms of like a game that did come out this year that took up most of my time. See, the thing is like with the games that I played this year, I kind of took solace in a lot of shorter games
Mhm.
because you know, I wanted to play as many games as possible, to write about as many games as possible. So I found that it was easier for me to kind of play games that are a good at most 20 hours. So then I could, go on playing literally anything else. But in saying that, I think the game that I probably spent the most time in was God of War. God of War Ragnarok, just because I wanted to finish it. I wanted to finish the game, and uh, I finished a lot of games this year that were pretty easy to finish because they were so short. But like, God of War was a slog compared to everything that I played. And uh usually if a game lasts for too long, I'll find myself honestly getting bored and I'm like, "Oh, well, if I can't see an end in sight, I don't really want to play this anymore because I want to spend my time playing other things." But God of War was one that was like, "No, no, no. You play me and you finish me.
Hmm.
You get to the end because you're absorbed now, and all of these characters are your friends or your enemies, and you care about them. So you're gonna get to the end of this game, and you're gonna see a father son relationship develop like never before, or else." So I think it was God of War. I spent about 50 hours in it, and
Yeah.
because all the games that I played this year were relatively short, or were a game on my phone that didn't come out this year. I think that was the one that really took the most of my time.
Mm. I don't think I saw a AAA game grab your attention like God of War did all year.
I don't think any of them did.
Mm.
God of War has been the only, one of the only, if you don't include Nintendo, but you should. But if you don't include Nintendo, God of War was probably the game, the AAA game that caught my eye,
Yeah.
and refused to let go of my eyes.
Kirby made you insane, but not like 50 hours insane.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Kirby
know?
rocked.
Kirby's
I
always
love that game.
always a good kind of insane. Okay,
Yeah.
so now a two-part question. Imagine I have a Men in Black neuralizer, their flashy thing, so I can wipe memories from your brain. What game from this year, if I could do this, would you wipe from your memory so that you could experience it anew, so that you could play it fresh fresh pair of eyes, all the emotions and sensations. And I'm going to say God of War does not apply because it's been used for other answers. So you've got
Yep.
to have something
Fair.
else.
Mm.
And the flip side of that question, if it exists, anything that you played that you would like wiped simply so you could forget it forever.
Yeah, cool. Oh man. Actually, I went first on the last one. Ruby, you go first on
Yeah,
this.
no, I was just about to say you went
Yeah.
first, so please let me. I think for wiped because I liked it, wipe because uh, it's gonna be probably Ghostwire Tokyo for me. Just because I had such a fun time with that game. I saw everything I needed to see in it, and what I did see was quite beautiful. The story, I thought, I know a lot of people dogged on the story, but I thought it was genuinely really, really interesting and a beautiful, beautiful tale. And I actually that was the other AAA game that kind of hooked me in, and I don't think I'll play it again just because I think I did everything I needed to do and went everywhere I needed to go. I think there probably could have been a few more dogs that I could have fed and cats I could have read the minds of. But like I would want to do it again, but I wouldn't want to do it again knowing everything I do now. Because it had twists, it had turns. So I wouldn't
Makes sense.
I don't know if I'll play it again. But if I had
Mm.
the ability to wipe my memory completely, I'd probably want to play that again. And then wipe because dislike. I've been uh very selective this year. And there haven't actually been any games that I think I've genuinely had a hatred for. So much
Yeah,
so
that's
that
true.
I would
Actually,
yeah, I made sure to be kind to myself and pretty much pick games that I either knew I would like or wanted to take a chance on and found that I really enjoyed. Um so
You just worked
maybe
something
the
out.
I Am Jesus Christ prologue.
The what?
oh, you've not heard about this, Alex?
So this is a
Oh,
new one by me.
So
Give me the 15-second version of
I will
whatever the heck it
absolutely
is.
play the full game when it does eventually come out. But I Am Jesus Christ is a game coming out where you are Jesus Christ and you play through the life of Jesus Christ as written in the Bible. Birth and miracles and
Press A to walk on
rebirth.
water, presumably. That
I
kind of
think
thing.
yeah, you walk on water, you turn water into wine, and you you fight Satan. So like
that's the prologue, by the way. Like Ruby
that's
was
the
like,
prologue.
I fought Satan himself, who is the devil. I fought him in the prologue. The game's not started yet.
And the reason why I think I'd want to wipe it from my memory was purely because I went through mental turmoil uh, in the process of playing this game. Not because of the game itself. I think Jesus was probably a pretty nice guy, but there was a glitch in the game that every chapter had an opening monologue that started the story and let you know what was happening and let you know what Jesus was about to do, right? And that was fully voiced audio with inspirational music in the background. And so you'd go into the chapter, and if you pause the game, there's already music playing under the game. If you pause the game and then unpaused it, that opening monologue audio would loop again. And so I listened to the story of the birth of Jesus 6 times
Oh, no.
with inspirational music behind it, with the music that was already existing in the game behind it, and sometimes dialogue from characters that I could not skip. So I was
Maddening.
losing my mind, and I think part of my brain was probably melted in that moment. So I think I'd wipe that purely in the hopes that that brain that melted would maybe grow back again.
The retro gamer in me is, and this is a total digression, but the retro gamer in me is rather pleased to discover that the history of religious themed video games is just full of stinkers.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
yeah,
no one seems to have actually cracked that to make a compelling religious
totally.
themed game to speak of. So, David, now for you,
Yes.
the games to wipe, to play anew, or to excise from your brain forever.
Oh, to play again, wipe to like, as Ruby put it. Oh man, it'd be Immortality, I think.
Mm.
If you haven't heard about this one, it's an FMV game. FMV is back, baby. But this one is it's made by a developer named Sam Barlow, part of a much larger studio. But Sam Barlow is known for making games like Telling Lies, and this one as well, Immortality. It's about an actor who appears in 3 films over the course of her life. She has a very strange career. These 3 films come out in very different time periods: the 60s, the 70s, and then the late 90s. And you are essentially a person in an edit bay, rolling the film back and forward and looking for connections, looking for clues to solve the mystery of who this woman was, what happened to her, and what her story was, basically. And over the course of this game, you piece these 3 films together, and this incredible story, one of the best stories I've ever seen in a game, unfurls before you, piecemeal. Fantastic stuff. If I could wipe that from my memory and play it again for the first time, I would in a heartbeat. It's so good. Um, I think I think it might have gotten overlooked a little bit this year. It was a critical darling, but like I didn't see many people outside of like the games critic circle playing this one. It's on Game Pass. Give it a go. I promise you'll like it. If I could wipe it because I didn't like it, that one is going to be pretty open and shut for me. I just played it. I have not put my review together yet, but it was the Callisto Protocol, which is a sci-fi game based, well, not based, a spiritual successor, if you like, to Dead Space,
Okay.
which, funnily enough, has its own remake coming out next month. It is actually directed by the same guy who directed Dead Space, Glenn Schofield, who's been around for a long time. It is. I don't know how Glenn Schofield, I don't want to be mean about it, but like, I don't know how he misunderstood his own game so bad, but he did. It's not a very enjoyable experience. I actually think it's a much better game. I've seen this take floating around other places as well. If you knock it down to easy and play it on easy, you'll have a much better time than on any other difficulty level. It takes some very interesting uh, ideas with combat and tries to implement them. It puts its dodges and blocks on the control stick, like the movement stick. Um, so if an attack is coming towards you, you've already got to be pulling back or moving to the side as it comes in. It's not very intuitive. The
Seems like a
gunplay isn't
recipe for
great.
disaster.
It
Hmm.
just didn't work for me. I would wipe it and never think about it again, to be honest. Yeah, not great.
So I've got to admit, I asked that question because certainly in my own experience as a games journalist, not that I do a lot of games journalism anymore, there was always that period where you had things that you had to look over or play that were just kind of, this is the obligatory thing that I must play, not
Yep,
the thing that I want to play, which I think a
yep.
lot of people don't get about games journalism. You don't automatically just, it's not all flowers and sunshine, sadly enough.
100%.
But David, you've actually preempted my final question.
Did I? I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No,
to do
no,
that.
this is all good. This is all good. It means it flows together naturally. What do you think? Excluding anything we've already talked about, if you can, but if
Sure.
you can't, that's good. That's fine too. What do you think the most overlooked game of the year has been? The one that people walked past and shouldn't have.
Man. Um, Discounting Immortality, which I do think was overlooked. Another little game I played this year that I really liked was one called Arcade Paradise.
Oh yeah,
Um, which I mean, I may have mentioned on this podcast before, but I really liked that little game. It's a job sim basically. You are basically given the keys to a rundown coin operated laundry by your old man, and in the back are a couple of arcade cabinets. What your character quickly realizes is that the arcade cabinets are making more money than the coin op laundromat, and you begin slowly but surely, day in and day out, putting a little bit of money away, saving up for arcade machines, and over time turning this coin-op laundry, knocking walls down, moving things around, and turning it into this dream arcade space.
So theme arcade.
Kind of, except you can play all the games.
Oh, even better. I'm
They've
there.
gone the extra step and they've built clone versions of all these really popular old arcade games that you can actually go and play over the course of the game. And they'll have like characters emailing you and setting challenges, like try and beat my score on this game and things like that. It is very cool, very interesting, very chill as well. If you're just looking for something you can come home after work, throw on and just sort of play while listening to podcasts or music after work, I think it's a perfect game for that. I really liked it. Really cool little indie team worked on that one. Yeah, Arcade Paradise, give it a go.
And Ruby, do you have an overlooked game?
Yes, I do, but it's a victim of circumstance. Mine is Justice Sucks. It's a game made by Australian studio Samurai Punk, and I loved it. I thought it was so much fun, so silly. Took so many turns one would not expect. I absolutely loved it, and the reason why I think it was overlooked was not of any fault of gamers and not of any fault of the studio, but the unfortunate case of it came out on the exact same day that the Queen died. Truly series
Serious?
of unfortunate
This
events.
events.
They had this date planned. They were like, it's before the big releases of the year, but after the wave of releases that came out early in the year, they went for September. It was a good date. Was it
And then
September?
it
Yeah,
wasn't. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it wasn't. It wasn't because they woke up in the morning and poor old Queen Lizzie had died on the exact same day their game came out. So of course that took over the news because why wouldn't it? It'd be everywhere. Game events like Nintendo Directs were even being edited to make sure that you know there would be no relation to the kingdom. You had Tears of the Kingdom announced as the title of the new Zelda game, and that wasn't live streamed in the UK because of the Queen's death. Like, it's such a little connection, and yet they were like, can't do it, bad idea. So, like, of course, a game coming out on the exact same day that happens, very unfortunate. Not just, for the monarchy, but also unfortunate for the studio that thought that they had chosen the perfect date for their game to come out. And the thing is, Justice Sucks rules. The first game that they made, because Justice Sucks technically a sequel, but really just a fully fleshed out, game made from a concept that got released as a game. You had Roomba First Blood,
Hmm.
and now you have Justice Sucks,
Oh,
and
right. Okay, so now I'm with you because I played so much Roomba. That's a
yeah,
great game.
yeah,
It's a great
Roomba
game.
rocks, and Justice Sucks basically takes the ideas from Roomba and fixes it, refines it, and makes it a fully blown game, and it
For the
rocks.
uninitiated, Justice Sucks is basically, think of something like Home Alone, but you play a little Roomba
A
who
little
is
robot vacuum
determined.
cleaner, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little robot
and
vacuum cleaner who is determined to protect their family.
yeah, by any means necessary, mainly violent.
Lethal force.
It is such a good game. It is so much fun and so funny. Like, I found myself genuinely laughing throughout multiple points in that game. That's a game that exceeded expectations, and that's
Mm.
because I didn't have any because I didn't know it came out because the Queen died. So, like, it's a shame, but like, I think that was the one that was overlooked purely because it was a victim of circumstance.
Cool. I am going to have my own answer for this one. It's the only one that I
Mm.
have an answer for. And it's a game that I think a lot of people have not necessarily totally overlooked, but certainly didn't have any expectations, at least based on the brand, because the brand itself is so damaged. And that's Atari 50.
Oh, it was so good, wasn't it?
I think it's such an important title in
Yeah.
terms of showing gaming history, showing what you can do with it, remixing stuff. It wasn't just another Atari rehash. It
I thought
absolutely
it
is.
would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No.
and I think a lot of people are just going to look at it and go, "Oh yeah, but it's just full of basic maths and breakout, and we don't need more copies of that."
No, I thought it would be, and it's gorgeous package.
Mm.
I've not seen like it kind of reminded me of like the Rare Replay collection where they
Mm.
really leaned in on the
But
history of the
even more so, I
studios.
mean,
Even more, yeah.
this is
Like,
absolutely for me the standard of what people should do with retro collections. There was an SNK collection a few years ago that
mm,
did similar kinds of things, but this just I think it's Digital Eclipse did it off the top of my head,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and this absolutely just hit it out of the park.
Yeah,
Um,
completely. Like interviews with like people who worked on these
mm,
classic games, like the kind of archival footage that like you would not have known existed if it were
mm,
not for a package like this. And it takes you on a tour, like game to
yeah,
game. Like we're going to talk about this one now, and let's hear from the people who worked on it, give you some context, a frame of reference for this game, because obviously they're very old now, and some of them have held up better than others.
mm,
And so they sort of it's a way of being able to prime younger players in
yes.
particular for what they're about to play and give like returning players a history lesson on some of the stuff that they really really love. I think it's a fantastic format. I hope other people pick the ball up and run with it. I think it's flipping great.
Mm. Well, that just about wraps up this week's episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to David and Ruby for joining me.
You bet, mate. Thank you for having us as always.
Our absolute pleasure.
And Ruby, it's time once again for you to face up to the patented D-pad friendly Vertical Hold 3 questions of doom. I will ask all 3 questions, and then you can answer them in any order you like. I always seem to have to say this. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And our current big contentious question: what's the worst job you've ever had?
Okay. You can find me on Kotaku Australia, where I write all sorts of interesting content. That's the best way to put it. Socially, you can find me at Ruby on Twitter. Uh, if it still exists
Yes.
by the time this comes out, it could end any day
Yeah.
now. We're living on a prayer right now. Uh, or on Instagram at r.ubiinnes, and at Comics by Ruby if you're interested in any of my drawn work. You can find me on Bebo. No, you can't. You can't find me on Bebo. I'm not there anymore. I used to be. But yeah, those are the places you can find me, both occupationally and socially. Anyway, the worst job I've ever had.
Keeping
There's one
Australian
that I probably
defamation.
shouldn't talk
I
about
was
because
going to
I'll
say,
get in trouble.
keeping Australian defamation law in mind as you answer this.
All right. So the worst job I ever had, was probably, uh, working at Domino's actually. The free pizza rocked. Uh, Let me tell you, I don't know. You probably talk to any Domino's worker, and they'll tell you that despite having pizza at the ready all the time, Domino's pizza still tastes really good. Not sure about Pizza Hut workers. I can say nothing to Pizza Hut workers. But Domino's, the pizza rocked. The vibes off. Weird. Stinky place to work. Um, I found myself constantly oily, uh, which was a shame. People were incredibly rude on the phone, but I also worked in retail and they were rude there too. And by the end of it, I ended up quitting because I was about 17 and I ended up quitting because I worked with 2 of my friends, both of which were lovely girls. And the guys that worked there decided to label us. Um, and one of my friends got the pretty one of my friends got the skinny one. And what did I get? I got the fat one. And I was like, all right,
Wow.
cool. I'm out of here. Goodbye. Bye
Let's
bye.
stand up, guys.
Worst thing for a 17-year-old to hear from adult men.
Ugh.
So that was the worst.
Yeah, I think we have a winner and a loser there in a
I
sense.
can't top that.
Yeah. And yet,
I
David,
can't top that.
And
Okay.
yet, David, it's time for you to face the exact same 3 questions.
Sure. You can find me also on Kotaku, kotaku.com.au. It's a website. And You can find me on social media at RuneWords. That's RHUN words. That's pretty much everywhere. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, Steam, Epic, anywhere you want to play a game. Look me up. Worst job I've ever had. Oh, I've worked a lot of jobs. I will not name the type, but I sold cars. That was
You don't strike
the
me as a car salesperson
I'm
type of
not,
The fact
person.
that
Alex.
David was
I'm
a
a
car
really bad
salesman is
one.
so weird.
I'm a real bad one. I could not. I was there for about a year at this particular dealership right after they opened, and I think I sold 3 cars in the whole time I was there because I could not lie to people. I was having to sell these cars that were not good, and I knew that they were not good. And on top of that, at the time I didn't really care much about cars or understand how they worked, which just made it even harder to try and relate to people about them because they were coming to me with more knowledge than I had before they got there. Worst job I've ever had. I hated it every minute. I hated every day of it. The place was run by a tyrant. I was never happy to be out of there. I actually went back to a retail job after that, a job I had previously thought was the worst one. And was like, you know what? Maybe it ain't so bad selling laptops. That might be all right.
Wow. Well, as always, and when Adam is back, you can catch us online at Vertical Hold AU on Twitter, again, for as long as that lasts, at the Vertical Hold Facebook page, or on the web at verticalhold.com.au. And were Adam here, he would tell everyone thanks for listening and for leaving reviews of the podcast. And don't forget to tell your friends or your enemies or those you game with about us as we continue to unpack the tech stories that matter in 2022 and 2023.
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support.